Good evening, everyone. Hope you all are doing great. Let's take a look and see what is going on with Bitcoin for this evening. So, taking a look at our daily candle, got a nice bullish move up, up about, gosh, $1,617, 2.57%. So, definitely a very strong move for the day. I would like to see us keep 64,437, in order for us to have a continued bullish move up, at least for right now. If we can keep that level, you guys are going to want to target around 65K at the very least, if not starting to dive into the 65K range itself. Maybe taking out this quadruple top up here around 65.3 would be an initial first target potentially. But for right now, we have a bullish sentiment, right? Now, that being said, we are starting the week off bullishly, okay? You take a look at your weekly candle, you don't have that big of a wick to the downside. So it is a little bit worrisome that we are starting our week off like that, but we're using 62,860, which is our monthly open, as our support line for right now, which is a very strong area of support. We can see it across other, basically other weeks, right? From it was basically July 27th, it looks like, that week, and then August 3rd. So, there's a lot of sensitivity down here. Now, the only problem with that is there's a lot of people that are willing to long this, right? Because they're like, oh, we're not going to get through this price level. And that can get you in trouble. So just be aware that we are trading up for the beginning of this week. I don't usually like to see that. I would have loved to see for price to got its butt moving Wednesday, Thursday, not necessarily Monday, Tuesday, right? So just be aware that this is not necessarily the best sign. 64,437 could be our resistance for right now, but it's, time is what's going to tell us whether or not that's going to be the case. For right now, because we are back above the 10-hour and the 8-hour 200 MA, about to get that golden cross there, you got to expect that, we're going to test that 12-hour, right? So basically that's around 66,517, it looks like. Yeah, 66,517 up here would be that 200 MA. So, basically wiping out a lot of these double tops, right? At least, is kind of what I'm expecting for right now. So, definitely still a bullish sentiment. Now, come Tuesday, we could definitely top out for the week, and we could basically dump the remainder of the week. It's all going to depend on what, our sentiment is for the current week. We did close, obviously, our weekly candle below the 200 MA, so there is a potential that we're just trading up to, get rid of it and take out some of those shorts before we actually go in their direction, right? All right, so 8-hour, 10-hour, everything's looking good. 6 hours looking good. 4-hour, you're back above the 200 as well. You just need to get that 21 coming back into price action. 1 hour just still looking great. It's just kind of bull flagging there. 15 minutes also in a bull flag, wasn't a bull flag, broke out, retesting it. Nothing is looking bearish to me just yet. Everything is looking great to me. So that being said, guys, it's not looking too bad. It's just the timing aspect is what's throwing me off a little bit, because you don't want to see Monday, Tuesday, Tuesday's okay, but you really don't want to see Monday getting a pump like this, because it's basically, on a weekly candle perspective, it could be a draw on liquidity, from a weekly perspective, right? Not necessarily from a daily or from a, smaller meso time frame perspective, but more so from a bigger time frame perspective, because you have to remember, price is fractal. So if we trade up first, there's a good chance that we're going to trade down last, right? That being said, guys, as far as levels go, really watch some of these key levels that I have here to the downside. 63,940 is going to be one. 63,600 will be another. 63,479, which is your, Monday midnight open. There's just a lot, right? There's a lot here that we could possibly, visit and use as support, right? And then to the upside, you have 64,918, 962, 65,186, 65,711. All of these levels are still valid to the upside, okay? That being said, guys, that is what I am seeing right now. Let's take a look at liquidity, see what's happening there. Let me bring this up here. All right, perfect. So let me reload this page. Let's go ahead and take a look at the daily. We haven't done this in a while. I don't usually look at the daily too often just because it doesn't change as frequently as some of the other time frames. But let's check off all these pools of liquidity. So you can basically see, guys, on the daily, we're getting closer to this pull up here, which gets us to about 71,169. So there's a potential, right, that we could start, getting into here again. That would also potentially give you that bearish 786 retracement, right, which is right around there. So 70,725. We have a chance of getting in here, okay, sooner rather than later. It could happen this month. It could happen next month. We're not going to stay in the 60s forever, obviously, so just keep that in mind. When it comes to the 4-hour, again, it is alluding to the fact that, if we can get up into here, right, we can start taking out some of this yellow and greenish liquidity here. So that's, up into 67, 68,000 at the very least. That's with the 25x. If I mark off the 10x, you can get even higher into that 70 range that we just saw on the daily. So really, it's going to depend on how far, the market makers want to drive price to the upside, if that is what we're meant to do, right? Now, there is a potential that we can move to the downside as well. We have all this green liquidity now down here. It is red when we just check off 25x. So it can bring us down to 60,600. I mean, personally, I'm probably even going to do this. I may put an order down here just to see if it'll get fulfilled and put a long in. Because this would be a great area, in my opinion, to actually long from down here. This is kind of a 786 retracement, if I remember correctly. Yeah, so it's kind of right on the dot of 786 retracement. But to me, this would be a great area to basically long from if we were to get down that low. All right, so taking a look now at our 1 hour. Let's see what we got going on there. All right, so our 1 hour, you're starting to dive into this liquidity up top. Obviously, you're starting a new daily candle, so you do want to see it dump first. There is a potential that we could get into here, right? Down into 63, 125-ish area even. I believe that would be another 786 retracement if I remember correctly. Yeah, so right around 63, 137 would be your 786 retracement. That is another potential, right? That could happen, but just be aware that it doesn't have to get that low, okay? That's going to be for your 100x and your 50x. Obviously, 100x would just take out this green area. 50x takes out everything down there. But this could be another, never financial advice, but it could be another good place for an entry if you do think that we're going to possibly get this low. It is possible, okay? Let's take a look at the 15 finally here, see what we got going on there. So basically, that would almost be a bounce off of the 200 MA. It would drive a little bit lower. You could even front run it potentially if you wanted to, around 63, 400-ish area, just so you could get your entry and just make sure you have your stop down further. Even potentially, honestly, guys, protecting below this yellow area wouldn't be a bad idea. You just would have to put your take profit way, way up here, would be the only thing. That being said, guys, that is what I'm seeing as far as liquidity goes. And taking a look at your order book and comparing it, it is showing you that you do have a good, decent order around 65K, around that level, 65,075 as well, 65,200. That's all within this green area up here. So definitely alluding to the fact that we can get up here if it wants to. And then the single order down here is around 64K. So that's going to be right around here, kind of taking out some of this liquidity. That would probably be another local 786. And then all the way down potentially, guys, into 63,325, which is, again, visiting into this liquidity pool down here. So everything is aligning with what we're seeing on the actual trading different chart versus the order books, okay? All right, let's take a real quick look at the simple map, see if there's any levels that I missed that we should be watching. All right, let me zoom in a little bit here. All right. So to the downside, you'd have quite a few support levels now. You have around 63,990, which is 64K. You lose that, you get to about 63,720. You lose that, you can roll to about 63,300, which is right around that 786 level I was talking about. And basically, if you lose that, you roll to about 62,640. So it can go really fast if you lose 63,300. That's going to be a real key area for us to keep, right around that 63,300 area. Now, to the upside, if you are able to get above 64,620, you can basically kind of get a follow through all the way to 65,130 and then up to about 65,490. So those are some areas to look for resistance to the upside. Taking a look at your swing time frames, it probably is going to show you the exact same thing like it usually does. 64K, 63,990, you lose that, you get to about, 63,490 480-ish area probably, then 63,300-ish area. And if you lose that, you go all the way down to 62,640. And then obviously to the upside, guys, you want to see 64,620 be reclaimed. You get above that, you consolidate, you'll get to 65,130, and then finally to 65,490. All right, guys, that is what I have for you right now. I hope you all have a wonderful evening. And really, just be cautious about this week because, like I said, we're pumping first. Yes, it could be an extremely bullish week. It's just we're not in the timing of basically the timeline yet in order for us to really expect some real good lift off of price action to the upside. So be very cautious about the trades you take. Make sure that you are taking profits quickly. And that being said, guys, I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and I will talk to you all in the morning. Take care.